Chapter 25. Theo. Have a good show, I murmured into her ear, breathing in her cinnamon scent. I let it settle in my lungs and calm me in a way nothing else could. Thanks. She sighed and snuggled into my chest. That buzzing I always felt around her was still there, but I barely noticed it now. My heart felt so full in moments like these I could almost forget about the threat to my mate. I could almost forget how I'd failed to protect her. Could almost forget that whoever was after her was on my goddamn payroll. We'd had weeks to talk through every aspect of the situation, and we'd all agreed her stalker had to be one of the humans that worked with us. No one else would have such consistent backstage access. No one else would be at every show. Their sense would be recognizable, but not out of place, which didn't help us either. In fact, in the 2.5 weeks since we found out there was someone stalking Dell, we'd learned nothing new. There'd been no new letters, no new gifts. The asshole hadn't been able to contact her once in all this time. Most of the credit for that went to the 6'8" werewolf I'd hired as her personal bodyguard. Sean could bench press a fucking Cadillac. There was no way anyone was getting near her with him around. But he was only backup because her first line of defense was me. There had only been a handful of instances I'd left her side for something other than the bathroom, but each time I'd had Sean and someone from the band watching over her. I could tell my overprotectiveness was starting to grate on some of them, but I couldn't relent. I couldn't let anything happen to her. I needed to figure out who was behind the notes and get rid of him before I could even think about letting up on her safety. Dell pulled out of my arms, breaking my dark train of thoughts. I need to go, she said, her eyes wistful, and her fingertips still gripping mine as she took a step back. Break a leg, baby. Her eyes lit up, and her smile was so fucking beautiful it almost blinded me. Dell strutted out onto stage and I watched her work the crowd like she always did. What I was really waiting for though was her first song choice. It was different every night, and just recently she'd admitted they were all dedicated to me. Now every show I waited on pins and needles to find out what she had to say with her music. This is I Know Places, Dell said, and I frowned because it wasn't a song I was familiar with. A quick Google search confirmed it was a Taylor Swift song, and I rolled my eyes. I really should have seen that coming. My heart started pounding as I took a quick scroll through the lyrics and understood exactly what she was trying to say. I stood there watching her, completely captivated, as I listened to her sing to me. When the song finally ended, she smiled out at the crowd but turned to me for one brief second and winked before launching into the next song. My grin was so wide it hurt my cheeks as I bent down to retrieve my guitar. Man, I fucking loved that woman. Since I refused to leave her side for pretty much anything, I'd taken to doing my pre-show instrument check backstage where I could still see her. I'd gotten a few nasty looks from Roman, but I didn't give a shit. The rest of the guys understood, and if he couldn't or wouldn't, then I guess he wasn't the friend I thought he was. I pulled the strap over my head and picked a note on the guitar. It was just a little off, so I fiddled with the tuners and tried again. As I did, the steel string snapped and almost whipped me in the face. Fuck, I muttered. What is it now? Mason asked as he hustled over to me. I really can't take any more bad news today. I rolled my eyes. It's just a guitar string, Maze. I can grab another one from the truck. He nodded, his attention already focused on his phone. Sounds good, he said. But I was sure he'd already forgotten my little dilemma. I turned to watch Dell finish another song and the crowd cheer before I looked over at Sean. I need to go grab something real quick. You good with her for a few minutes? Sean turned to me with an unimpressed look. Yeah, I think I can handle it. The werewolf security guard was clearly sick of my overprotectiveness, but I didn't give a shit. As long as he did his job, he could think what he wanted. Okay, keep her safe, I said as I walked away, not expecting an answer, which was good because I didn't get one. I jogged through the back of the venue, eager to get the new string and get back to Dell's side. Logically, I knew there was a very slim chance anything could happen to her on stage in the 5 minutes I'd be gone, but it still didn't feel good to have her out of my sight. The big cargo truck that carried all our equipment was thankfully open and lit up as I approached. I climbed into the back and started combing through the totes we had full of backup shit. Hey Theo, looking for something? I glanced over my shoulder to see Larry standing at the other end, his ever-present clipboard glued to his chest. Yeah, I called. I'm just looking for Some new strings. I think they're in the back, actually. I huffed out a breath and straightened up. Thanks, I muttered as I traveled further into the truck. Larry didn't answer, but that hardly registered. What did catch my attention was the loud grating metal sound of the cargo's rolling door sliding shut. Turned to ask him why the fuck he'd closed it, but the words got caught in my throat. Now's probably a good time to set a few things straight with you, Larry said, as he readjusted his hold on the gun he had pointed at me. Why don't you have a seat? This shouldn't take long. Larry, what are you doing? I said sit down, he yelled, his face bright red already. I held up my hands in surrender and slowly lowered my ass onto a box. Okay. I'm sitting. What's up? His lips curled into a grin as he slowly walked forward. You know, I saw the way you looked at her, but I dismissed it at first. I was sure you were as unimportant as the others, that she'd look right past you like she looked past everyone else. Larry, what are you talking about? He lifted the gun higher and pointed it at my head. I might be a werewolf who could heal faster and from worse injuries than a human, but a bullet to the head was a bullet to the head. I had no shot of surviving that. Don't fucking interrupt me, he screamed. I watched the light in his eyes flicker with a mania I'd never seen before. It was clear then that Larry was unhinged. I just didn't know how far he'd go. Like I was saying, I thought you would be as forgettable as everyone else. But I was wrong, and that's my fault. I didn't see you as the rival you really were, and that is the only reason you were able to take her from me. The more he talked, the tighter my stomach twisted as his words started to paint a picture I didn't want to fucking see. What are you talking about? Dell, he bellowed. I'm talking about Dell and how you stole her from me. My gut plummeted as I tried to grasp what was happening. Larry, are you the one who's been leaving her notes? He laughed, and the gun swung wildly before he focused it back on me. I've been leaving her soul-deep love letters that are more powerful than anything you could ever offer her. I'd already known the answer, so why was it so shocking to hear out loud? Did you leave her that bear too? I asked through gritted teeth. Larry's eyes flashed with anger as he aimed the gun at my head again. The one you fucking ruined, he seethed. I rolled my eyes. The one with the fucking camera in it, you creep? His face darkened further, even his ears turning red as he glared at me. It was only to protect her, so I could watch over her. The only one she needs protecting from is you. I yelled as the rage started to simmer in my system, and I rose to my feet. You. My words were drowned out by a loud bang, and then everything went dark. Dell. Thank y'all for having me. Enjoy the rest of the show, Montgomery. The crowd cheered, and my cheeks were hurting because of how long I'd been smiling. This tour was exactly what my career needed, and I'd never felt better. The audience loved my original music, and I felt like I connected to each and every crowd I played for. It was like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, and I couldn't have been happier. Except Theo disappeared halfway through my set, and I still couldn't see him as I walked backstage. Hey Sean, where's Theo? I asked my giant bodyguard. He said he had to go get new strings for his guitar. I frowned. Was he going to the truck for them? That's what he said. My frown just deepened. The truck with all our equipment and supplies was parked right behind the venue. It should only have taken him 10 minutes to get there and back, but he'd been gone for twice that. I pulled my guitar off and set it in the case as my heart beat and my stomach twisted. Sean, we need to make a detour. No. Sean, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, I said as I stood up straight and stared him down. I didn't care he was over a foot taller than me. There was this churning in my gut that told me something was wrong, and I wasn't stopping until I found out what. My orders are to deliver you from the bus to the venue and back again. Nothing else. I grabbed his arm, and with a big tug he finally started to walk. We are going to the bus. We're just stopping at the truck first. They're practically neighbors. The bodyguard blew out a deep breath but didn't fight me anymore as I walked quicker and quicker toward the exit. There was a sense of urgency I couldn't place but also couldn't ignore. I somehow knew I needed to find Theo as soon as possible. When we reached the large box truck, the first thing I noticed was the scent of blood, and I started to walk faster. Theo! I yelled as I climbed into the cargo area. Theo! Wait up, Dell, Sean groused as he followed me into the dark truck. I'd never been in here without the lights on, and now every shadow was something waiting to jump out and grab me. I kept my eyes on my feet as I called his name again. When there was no response, I walked further into the truck, ignoring Sean's request to stop. Theo! I yelled again, and this time I heard him. It was only a soft moan, but it was enough for me to find him hidden behind a stack of boxes. Theo! Said again as I fell to my knees next to him. Within seconds my jeans were wet, and when I looked down I saw I was covered in blood. Theo! I squeaked as I rolled him over. His shirt was soaked with blood, his face ashen as he lay there almost lifeless. If I hadn't heard the loud but uneven beat of his heart, I'd have thought he was already dead. Theo! I whispered, my voice cracking as I got a look at the wound in his neck. The tears streamed down my face as my hands fluttered above him, unsure of what to do to help. Sean! I screamed. I need help. I looked around for something to press against his throat to slow the bleeding, but I couldn't find anything. A growl tore from my throat as I sat there watching my mate die and doing nothing to stop it. A loud boom rang through the truck, and I threw my hands up to cover my ears. Sean! I yelled when I could finally hear again. Del! I froze in place, my heart picking up its pace again. Larry! I called. He wasn't the werewolf bodyguard I needed to help me carry Theo out of here, but maybe he could go get someone. Is Sean out there? I think I saw him walking toward the bus, he said as he kneeled next to me. What happened? The tears were back as I looked down at Theo. I don't know, I just found him. Like this. I sniffed hard and shook my head, doing my best to get a grip. We need to help him. I need you to go get Mason or Declan or even Roman. Larry sighed. It's too late, Delaware. He's gone. My heart clenched tight in my chest as everything else froze. But then I heard the erratic thump of his pulse again, and I knew he was wrong. I shook my head and wiped my face. It's not too late. Del, Larry said as he slid his arm around my shoulders and squeezed. He's dead. There's nothing you can do. I jerked out of his grip and turned to him with a glare. He's not dead. I can hear his heartbeat, I snapped. Larry frowned. You can hear his heartbeat? Everything inside me froze again, and I wondered if my poor heart would make it through this night. My mind raced at top speeds as I tried to come up with an excuse for my slip up, but before I could, Theo moaned again, and I turned to him. Theo! Whispered. What the fuck? Larry muttered as he stood up next to me. I grabbed Theo's hand and hovered over him. Theo? Can you hear me? Del, he whispered. A sob fell from my lips as I inched closer. Yes. It's me. I'm here. I'm gonna get you help. Larry, he croaked. Larry's here too. He's gonna go get someone to help you. Theo's eyes went wide at the same time. A small metal click rang out in the truck. I turned to find Larry standing over us holding a gun, and my heart plummeted to my stomach. Larry, I said, my voice soft and shaking so bad I could barely talk. Get out of the way, Delaware. Theo tried to push me aside, but I moved to cover more of him instead. What are you doing? I told you to get out of the way. So you can shoot Theo? I don't think so. What are you doing? I'm trying to save you from him. Larry screamed, spit flying from his lips. He's controlling you and keeping you from me. He can't keep coming in between. He needs to go. I shook my head like I didn't understand, but deep inside I had a sick feeling I knew what he meant. I still had to ask though. Larry, what are you talking about? I'm talking about that asshole thinking he can have whatever he wants just because he can play a guitar. I could train a fucking monkey to do what he does. Larry yelled, his gun swinging in the air. Inch by inch, I adjusted my stance until I was crouched instead of kneeling, ready to make my move. I'd rather be in my wolf form already, but I just have to hope I could shift in time. I watched and listened to Larry go on and on about how hard his job was and how he deserved the recognition, instead doing my best to tune out his words, because every single one sent a shiver racing down my spine. Never in a million years would I have suspected the mild-mannered manager's assistant capable of something like this. But here we were, and I was about to end this shit for good. If he'd just left you alone, I wouldn't have had to do this, Larry blathered on as I waited for my opportunity. Finally, a sound from outside distracted him and he turned to glance over his shoulder, but it was all I needed. I leapt toward him, willing my body into a wolf as I sailed through the air. He fell hard to the ground under my weight, but the shift was complete and I didn't waste any time digging my teeth into his neck and ripping his throat out. I jumped off his lifeless body and shifted back. With a glance around me, I spotted a tote full of merch and grabbed an oversized t-shirt. When I was as decent as I was going to get, I hefted Theo over my shoulder and raced out of the truck. His heartbeat had only gotten slower in the precious minutes we'd lost, and I knew he needed help. I just had to hope I was in time, and that I hadn't just lost the first man I'd ever really loved.